Hey, what's up, guys? It's Dean from Electronisounds. Stick around. I'm going to show you a really cool filter technique that you can use inside of Beatmaker 3 for genres like dub techno, house music, or really any genre that uses chord samples. Stick around and check this out. And again, we've got real control over our sound here.
Electronisounds Audio, the YouTube channel for you.
I've opened up Beatmaker 3 and we've got ourselves a blank session. Now this is a chord filtering technique, so the first thing that we'll need is a chord sample. Let's go ahead and make one. If we click over to the sampler window and we press on this little button here, we can load ourselves a plugin, and we're going to choose an Audio Units V3 synth. And for this tutorial, we're going to use the Poison 202 synth from Jim Audio. And now, if you don't have this synth, you can feel free to use whatever synths you've got. Just scroll through the presets or make one of your own until you've got something that you think is a nice, chord sound. I did make a tutorial on how to record chords from the layer synth. I'll put a link to that. But for this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and choose a preset here in Poison 202. I found a sound that I like and I think will work pretty well for this. It's the Bank D, preset number 21, OB. It's kind of like an Oberheim sounding synth. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open up the filter cutoff on this all the way, and you'll see why in just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and go to the song menu, the third button down here, and we'll double click on the Poison 202 track to create a pattern. We'll click that out to where it's two measures rather, and we'll double click in there, and we're going to go ahead and input a chord. For this, I'm going to go ahead and choose an F minor. That's my favorite key to write in, mainly just because I've memorized that scale. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. Let's just double check our levels are okay on the mixer. Looks like it might be peaking. Yeah, just a little bit, so we'll bring this down and avoid any of those, clips. Perfect. Nice big strong level there. Okay. So what we'll do, guys, is we're just going to go ahead and export this chord real quick. We'll click export, and we definitely want to use the master output. Let's do a 2-bar duration, and wave 24 bits. Perfect. So we'll start export. Okay. And it's available in our exports directory. So if we go to the exports directory, here we go. And it was just from a new session, probably this one at the bottom. Awesome. Okay, so what let's do here is let's create a new bank, right? We'll go back and just delete the Poison 202 for now. And now we have an empty bank that we'll drag that chord sample onto. Okay, guys, so I've deleted the Poison 202 bank now, and we're back to just an empty blank bank inside of Beatmaker 3. Now we can go get that chord sample from the exports directory. New session here. Okay, perfect. And we'll drag that onto a pad here. Now this is probably a good time to go ahead and give this sample a proper name and store it wherever in Beatmaker 3 you're storing your samples. For now, we'll just use the main sample directory, and maybe I'll call this F minor Poison 202 chord 1 or something, right? Cool. And then we can go to our main samples directory here and grab that sample. Whoops, go to the pads there, and we can drag that right onto the pad. Cool. Now actually what let's do is let's go ahead and do some editing on that. We'll change it from a one-shot to hold mode. We'll bring this release up a little bit so that it still plays through. Cool. And let's go ahead and copy that to some empty pads here. Paste and paste and paste. So now we have 4 different pads that have the same sample on them. But what we're going to do is we're going to make some variations on this sample. So let's do that. we'll start with the first sample here, and let's put like a low pass filter on that, and maybe just sort of leave that as is for now. Let's make sure we're not peaking. Nah, it looks okay. Okay, let's go into the third sample here. Maybe we'll put like a high pass filter on this one. Maybe we'll bring the resonance down on that a little. Maybe on this high pass one, we'll change that release a little bit, bring it a little tighter. Maybe on the low one here that we put a low pass filter, maybe we'll bring the release down on that as well. And let's see here, maybe we'll take some of the lows off of this one here. If we go to the effects menu, and let's put actually an EQ on the whole bank right now. We'll just, I have a default EQ that I like to use, which just shaves off the tiniest little bit of lows. Not really something that you can really even hear, just on the off chance that anything is, coming through under, like 30 hertz. And let's put an EQ just on this sound here, right? So if we're in the effects tab and we click the pad number 1 icon up here, it's going to allow us to actually select the individual pad we want. And we want pad number 1, okay? And so that's what we're on. Well, fantastic. Can we get one on the whole bank? Cool. Here we go. If I click, bank 1 at the top, then we can put EQ on the whole bank as well. But what I really want to do is we're going to click the pads, and and we're going to go back into select pad and that first pad, okay? And we're going to bring that low EQ up a little bit. Okay, you can see we're affecting just that pad. Let's do a little something to that last one as well. Let's try maybe like a band pass filter. And maybe we'll put a little more resonance on this guy. Cool. Maybe we'll bring the release down on this fourth one a little. Whoops. Okay, cool. Now what we could do, guys, is we can add an effect, on the whole bank, rather, if we click bank 1, and we make sure that on the effects tab, it's the whole bank that we're affecting. We might add like, let's see here, like a compressor on this whole bank, right? So mode compressor, and then I like to use a ratio of 4:1 a lot of the time. And let's see, on the attack, let's bring that up to like 12 milliseconds. That's just going to let the attack of the sound punch through a little tiny bit more. For now, let's just leave the release as is. And let's see here. Bring this threshold down just a little bit. What the compressor's doing, guys, is it's sort of just helping keep, the volume of these samples a little bit more even. It's going to bring down the volume very subtly of anything that's too loud, and it's going to bring up the volume very subtly on anything that's like too quiet, and it just sort of evens it out a little bit. Okay, and what let's do is let's go ahead and, add like a neat effect on here, like let's say reverb or something, right? There's a nice reverb in Beatmaker 3. It's the M verb. I like to turn the density on that right down, and maybe for this we'll use maybe a larger room, maybe turn it up to 70, and maybe the decay will turn up to match. Whoop. Cool. We'll bring this mix down a little bit so it's just kind of subtle, but it's there, Maybe a little more than that, maybe 25. Yeah, it's sounding pretty good, you guys. We've done quite a bit now, so it'd probably be a pretty good time to save. So we'll go ahead and click save, and we'll give this a name. Let's just call this filter chords tutorial for now. Cool. But now at any time, we can just click the, save button and make sure we don't lose any of our work in case there's any sort of a crash or anything like that. Okay, so what let's do is now that we've got some chords in, we know that these are F minor chords. So if we were going to put like a kick drum in, it might be beneficial to us if we could use a kick that we know is already tuned to the key of F. So in my, I'm going to use my saffron sample, my reflective sample pack, and we're going to grab a kick drum. So let's see here. If I go into my samples directory, and if we go into the reflective sample pack, we go into drums, and we go into kicks. We got Dean's personal kicks here, and in this folder is just a whole bunch of kick drums that are all already key labeled. Ooh. Always like this Sasha kick. It's just so dark and dubby. Oh, but there's reverb on this bank. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and put the drums on a different bank, I suppose, so that we can keep the reverb on these. But, globally, so that it's the same reverb on all. So for now, let's see here. Let's go ahead and clear this pad, and we'll start a new bank for the drums. Cool. And we know that this kick drum is already tuned to F because it's, labeled appropriately. So what let's do is let's go ahead and start ourselves a 2-bar pattern in song mode here, okay, on bank B, which let's go ahead and label now. Rename. We're going to call this drums. And then bank A, we're going to rename, and we'll call this chords. So it's a little bit more, straightforward what we're doing here. And we'll save at this point as well. Cool. In the song mode, now we can double click on the pattern. And we can get our, kick drum here. Come on. Okay, cool. And let's see. Right, let's bring that in a little bit and duplicate that out. Cool. Bring our tempo up to 120, maybe 115. Whoops, did we get maybe 115? Cool. Okay, so we've got our kick drum, pounding. Why is it? Oh, I see. If we go back to the song window, we'll need to click our loop brace up here, and we'll need to activate that loop brace so that it's, going around every 2 bars. Cool. Now if we double click on the chords and we extend that out, we double click on that, we can see our chords here. And just sort of randomly, let's put something in. I mean, who knows, right? Ooh, that's pretty nice already. Let's see here. Let's move some of these around. Well, I think that's pretty nice already. If we go into the effects menu, maybe take a look at our dynamics here, and we can maybe see which chord. It's this one here. It's really loud in the mix. Let's bring that down a little. Something else that we can do to give some variation to each of these guys is do a little bit of stereo separation. So like if I pan the first chord like left 5 and the second chord, like right, 9, and then the, the third chord like 6 left and the fourth chord like, who knows, like 4 right, just gives us this tiny little bit of movement in the stereo field, which is always a good thing. At this point, let's go ahead and save again. Let's go ahead and take a look at the mixer section and make sure that we're not peaking or anything. No, our levels look fantastic. Excellent. Let's see about adding some delay to these chords. and get a little bit of a dubby thing happening here. If we go back to the effects section on the whole bank here, and we insert a stereo delay, and let's see, if we bring this stereo delay up before the reverb by clicking on the three dots and selecting move up, now the stereo delay comes in the chain of effects here before the reverb, and that's what we're looking for. We're going to do like a high pass cutoff here to say, I don't know, like around 100 hertz. Okay. I like to use the dotted settings a lot of the time, and I like to, try to get a different setting on the left channel and the right channel. So maybe like eighth notes dotted on the left and quarter notes dotted on the right could be cool. We might turn some of the feedback up on, like, say, the right channel, so that, again, we have a little bit more stereo separation. Might turn the feedback up here. This might be something to assign to a macro, this feedback, so that you can adjust it in real time. If we double click that, we choose macro controls, we can choose any of the 16 macros to assign to that effect. What let's do is let's just choose like macro 5, right? And if we go over here and we double click this, it's going to allow us to set the minimum value and the maximum value when we turn this knob. I don't ever want there to be like no delay, so I'm going to make the minimum value like 10%. So even when the knob is at its completely off position, there's still some delay coming through on the sound. And we'll say, like, turn the max, let's try like 70, and we'll need to play with that and see if we like those settings. We'll turn it all the way up and see how it sounds. That's pretty nice. So we could adjust this in real time now and have it not quite so much effect, or in other parts of our track we can turn this up. Something else that might be cool would be to like put a filter on the whole track itself, so that we can filter down like all of these chords at the same time. So if we like add an effect here, and let's choose this SV filter here, and let's bring this to the very top of the chain so that the filtering happens before the effects are happening. And we're going to move this up, and we're going to click it again, and we're going to move this up, and we'll click it again, and we're going to move this up so that it's like even before the compressor. And we'll set the maximum value on this filter all the way up. By default, we've got like a low pass filter, maybe a tiny bit less resonance on that. And we can assign this to a macro knob, the filter cutoff on our track, by double clicking that, clicking macro, and then let's choose like, another empty macro spot here. You can choose any of the macros that you prefer. It doesn't really make a difference. We're just going to rename this, filter. I like to do a filter down so that I can, keep this knob at like a 0 position, and then when I turn it, it filters the sound down. So we just sort of turn the minimum value so that the filter is all the way open, and then when I turn the knob, it's going to close the filter down. And I like to set that to about 300 hertz. I find is usually a pretty good starting place. So we'll set it right around there, and we'll see what happens when I filter those chords down. Nice. So we could sort of just keep assigning things and keep building things to these chords. We could assign like a knob to a macro knob rather, to like say the reverb setting, and get pretty pretty jiggy with it. Or we could set on the stereo delay, we could assign like how much feedback we want, or maybe how much dry wet mix we want. So for instance, on the reverb, if we double click that on the dry wet amount, we can assign that. It's a pretty nice one to assign, right? So if we rename that to like reverb mix, and then we can maybe set this to like, a minimum value of just a little bit and a maximum value of, let's try like 60 something, and maybe put a color on there. Cool. Yeah, see, so in real time, now you can do all sorts of stuff with these knobs. You can have this real dark, chordy wash with like a whole bunch of reverb and delay. Or you can, bring all these down. And in real time, you've got this sort of control over these chords. And this trick is like, again, I mean, super, super cool for dub techno especially. You guys know I love the dub. You can do other tricks like putting multiple delays on the effects end, or you can even go into the effects and rather than affect the whole bank, you could go in and select just like, an individual chord, and you could put like, a different delay on that, or like maybe, I mean, anything you want, right? Here's like a modulation delay. We could put a flanger on that. Maybe bring the depth down just a little. But now it's only affecting, this one sound here. You might make that even more subtle, Put a little feedback and some of this maybe, who knows. That's just it. So you could very quickly, now that you've got something that's kind of grooving and kind of working, right? If we go back to the song menu, let's close this out. If we go back to the song menu, right, we can, in our chords bank, rather, let's see here, how would we do this? It's been just a minute since I've done this. Here we go. If we click, let me see if I can go back out so that I can show you. So you're in your regular menu, right? And if you just go to the song menu and you click at the top, now you've got the actual patterns for the chords. And what you could do is click these dots over here, and we could, duplicate this and create a different pattern. Okay, and we could go into this pattern and we could just, maybe move these around, right? So like there's no number 3 in here yet. So let's delete this one. Put in a couple of number 3. See how it's hitting the 3rd chord now? And let's maybe take this one out, or maybe, bring it down here. And now we've got like a, variation of that pattern. Oops. Okay, so if we go back to the song window here, here's pattern 1. And if we drag pattern 2 out, repeat the kick drum, now we've already got some variations happening on what the chords are doing. And again, we've got real control over our sound here. Get the idea. You can see why I really love this kind of stuff for live jams and assigning to the macros. I hope you guys found this useful. Be sure and stay tuned for more Beatmaker 3 shenanigans. And one last thing before I go, guys. Let's not forget to save.